Hello, coming at you from my lab building. I just submitted one of my final papers for the semester and I was feeling really inspired to do this video, and it was also a follow-up video that I said I was going to do from the last one. Definitely learned a lot. So if you're new to my channel, my name is Genevieve. The channel is The Christian Academic. I have 3 degrees: Bachelor of Science Civil Engineering, Bachelor of Arts in German Studies, and a Master of Science in Environmental Engineering. And I just finished my first year of a PhD study, but I am transitioning over to industry. What I wanted to talk about today was what not to do your first semester, and of course the opposite of that is to what to do for your first semester, by telling you a story. I have a lot of stories. It's basically probably how this channel will go. So my first semester was really difficult for me. I got put onto academic probation, which means that your GPA is like less than a 2.7. And there were many reasons for that. The first one was that, and I feel like most YouTubers don't give away the main punchline until several minutes into the video, but I'm trying to keep these short. So the first one was that I was using a study technique that I used in high school, in college, and I didn't know another way. And what that study technique was basically kind of volume learning, a lot of details, really understanding, just basically memorizing all of the information. I could synthesize it, but basically in high school, what they tell you should know, it's pretty straightforward with what it's going to be in the exam. So the more you can kind of memorize and remember and utilize it to some degree, just basically the better that you'll do. So I tried doing that my first semester, especially for chemistry, and I forgot I have to look at the camera. For chemistry, and it was really difficult, and I was trying to do it for all of my classes, and it was very difficult. I found the exams to be very confusing. I also felt cheated a lot of times because I felt like I understood a lot of the material, like in and out, or the material that I did understand I could kind of recite to you, but I just felt like I really couldn't anticipate what was going to be asked of me, and it was very disorienting. So that was the first problem. I was trying to use the same technique of just volume learning, or volume memorization, and applying that to my college courses. The second problem, which I wouldn't really fix until my junior year, was that I was studying alone, which is a death wish. Studying alone is the actual kiss of death for studying in college. And I can only speak to engineering. I did my German studies degree. I did that solo, but with engineering, problem solving, you had to do it with other people. Now, I'm not saying that if you're German studies or any of the liberal arts that you don't work with other people. I think that you would have a much better experience with learning with others. But for engineering, it's not an option. You gotta find your tribe like ASAP, like yesterday. Like, you walk into your chemistry 1000, your computer science engineering 1000, you better be looking. You better be looking for the people in the front row. Yeah, I'm saying you want the front row energy as your friends. So that was my other issue, was that I didn't have friends. So I got put on academic probation the first semester. Now, if you remember from my last video, I did have a friend. I guess I won't say her name. I haven't asked her if I could on my channel yet. But we did study together, but it was at that time hard for me to ask for help because, I was used to being kind of the best in my class, the best in my, not the entire class, but in my classes, right? In my high school. And it was that thing that people talk about, the big fish, little pond type scenario. So for my university, there's like 20,000 people just on one campus. My chemistry class had 300 people. And these were people, especially for the first 2 years, you're taking gen eds. So people who we're taking, what's it called? AP classes are probably going to be in your class. And yeah, they're going to affect the bell curve. And then you're going to have people like me just trying to do the Lord's will in that class, who could recite poetry but could honestly care less about any, chain of reactions. I don't want to say I don't care, but it was just not my thing. But we're all in one room. And in some cases for chemistry or other kind of hard classes in engineering, depending on who scored the highest, like if the highest score was a 65, that was weighted as the 100 or scaled as the 100. And then everyone else was graded accordingly. So my last thing that I wanted to say in this shorter video, and I'm doing better at not having a need to edit so much afterwards. Also, my hair was wet last video, so it's not now. My last tip was friends. I was supposed to pull up that verse for you, but I'm going to put it up here or here. But I think we know it. It's iron sharpens iron, right? That's the first verse. The other one was bad company corrupts good manners. If there's anything I learned, if you take anything away, if this is the last video you ever watch of mine, please, as you're like going into college, please remember this. There are no shortcuts. There's no shortcuts in learning. And don't give in to the temptation to believe that there are any. What I mean by that are a couple principles, right? It's a truth because there's a spiritual principle. One, God will not be mocked. Whatever you reap, you will sow. I knew people who took the shortcuts of just basically memorizing exams, getting very well on the exams, messing up the curve for everybody, but then they go out into the real world and they can't pass the qualifying test that they have to take for job interviews. So there's that example. But not only that, but when you bypass the learning process, you're giving up the opportunity to learn about yourself as a learner, and also not just you don't just bypass knowing the real solution is, but you give up knowing who you are as a learner, and also building a sense of resilience, because when we get into the real world, there aren't any real solutions. It's all process oriented. And if you don't give yourself the gift of knowing who you are in the midst of a process, then you're going to feel very ill-equipped in the workplace, because the answers don't come ready. And you're also working in a team. So there's so many skills, I'll talk about that later, that you learn by not taking the shortcut. Also, when you take a shortcut, you don't get to know your professors, which was probably the most key thing for me in all of the experiences that I had, was that I had a working relationship with the professors that I had. So that's what I wanted to share today. Yes, I was put on academic probation, and by the time I finally got to my junior year, actually after my year abroad where I did really well, it kind of boosted my GPA. And then I was eligible to be in the Civil Engineering Honor Society, and I was asked to be the president. And I'm really grateful that I did that, because I built a mentor-mentee program to basically communicate with freshmen, first semester, second semester, first year, second year students, what I just shared with you. So that's what I wanted to share today. I hope you remember the takeaways. Don't take any shortcuts, and also be ready your first semester to make other friends. I just forgot the other point that I wanted to make. Iron sharpens iron. Bad company corrupts good manners. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the first row energy, the first row vibe. Your success, if you believe me that you have to have friends to make it through the engineering program, and I really hope you believe me, it will make your life a lot easier, rather than having like MVP syndrome from high school into college and thinking you could just do it all on your own. If you really believe me, then also listen to this. Your success is determined by the people you hang out with. When I did make a couple of friends my junior year, it was a process, I'll tell you about that later. My friend actually sent me an article from LinkedIn saying that, like, strive to be the least impressive in your circle group. And the idea of that was you want to be with other people who are evolving, don't take shortcuts, they're willing to work out the problems, and they have a good work ethic. That's really what's going to sell you after your degree. And that's what I think college is really for, especially engineering. Developing your work ethic and how you work on a team, that's not going to go anywhere. That's going to be with you for all of your career. Is someone coming in? No one's coming in. So choose your friends wisely. Choose your friends prayerfully, because their company will determine your success. And if God provided friends who didn't take their shortcuts for me, I know He can do it for you too. And you're worth it. It's going to be really hard. You're actually going to be faced with this often, very, very often, to make that decision of, am I going to take a shortcut? Am I going to use Chegg for the answers, or am I going to struggle? And I 100% think that all of my success was based on the fact that I chose the high road, I chose the struggle, because it developed character and it gave me something to think about. I remember I was talking with a couple of my classmates about this one answer. I was like, oh, well, how did you get that? And they're like, oh, I just got that. I said, I know that, but how? And it come to find out, a couple years later, I was working with that same person. They just used Chegg, right? So they got the answer, but when it was right, they didn't know why it was right. And when it was wrong, they didn't know it was wrong. And that's a problem, right? So especially for civil engineers who are going to be building bridges, they're going to meet that all the work that you bypass when you take a shortcut, it doesn't disappear. It just gets moved forward until later. So don't wait until you're in a job in an awkward situation where you feel like there's something that you should have known that you don't, and that you also don't know how to work in a team, how to manage conflict with other people. You can do that now. You can do that in college. So that's the rub. Thank you for listening. I'm going to go get Starbucks because I'm going to treat myself to finishing a paper that was kind of excruciating for me to finish. Bye, guys.